Ladies and gentlemen, it is a wonderful, wonderful afternoon here in Connecticut. And guess what? Here we are on Lighting the Candle, a world that works. And we're in the middle of a really kind of a neat new experiment that we're doing. Instead of having our regular panel here today, it's just my dear friend Vanessa Lewis and me, Bill Correll. And we're going to see if we can talk about something that will bring you a smile, bring some empowerment and some lightness to your day. And quite frankly, uh, I'd be real interested in hearing what you have to say. Once you've heard the conversation. But we were talking in the last half hour, and just basically what's going on with different types of media, social media, advertising, et cetera, et cetera. And we got into what was kind of the most interesting insights coming out of COVID, meeting with people live. And Vanessa started telling, some I think some pretty interesting stories about the awkwardness of whatever is appropriate in terms of hugging people, right? So, is that anything more to say about that before we jump right in, Vanessa?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's right. I'll add to that a little bit though. Hugging people and also just any physical contact, like even shaking hands was,
Yeah. So
so
was
for,
that?
I know someone,
Yeah, go ahead. I was just
what's
going to
that?
say, is that concerned? Was that out of concern for a COVID background, or just that it wasn't a natural action for you anymore, or what do you think it was?
No, it was coming out of the pandemic background. Yeah. Because we were all, told to keep washing our hands and I know I saw a few people do what was called an elbow bump or something, an
Right.
elbow bump or something, something like that. And I only saw a few people. It didn't really take off. So,
Yeah, there was something that was a little bit, shall we say, inauthentic about that being a serious greeting. You're
yeah.
absolutely right. The back of the fist bump, I think, got used a lot more than any elbows.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But
I
anyhow,
don't know. I didn't too much of either. I just saw a lot of people just, you know, staying 6 feet apart and respecting each other's space. And if they were going to hug, I did see a few hugs among that time. And, you know, I, they still had their masks on. And yeah.
well, I'll tell you what. Here's how it went for me. Quite frankly, when I met people and we had our masks on, and it was okay for people to come out for one-on-ones, but not groups of people.
Hmm.
With our masks on, almost 100% we'd still embrace and have a hug, because we knew we couldn't do that on you know Zoom or Ring Central or any of the other online platforms or on the telephone. And
Yeah.
I can tell you from my personal standpoint, I was so excited to see human beings in the flesh after
Hmm.
it literally was just about a year before we were going out and able to do that. I want to say it was in March when things started to open up a little bit. I was
Yeah.
frequently going out to lunch or dinner with my dear wife. As those people that know me well know, I lost 35 pounds last year by August, and then between September and May, I put 20 of the 35 back on again. So that was that was all good food out at restaurants and happy hour every day. So that made me more huggable for a little while, Vanessa. And I'm down almost 11 pounds, from where I was 2 weeks ago. It's a very interesting thing right now. Uh, I met with a group of 7 people over at Banana Brazil Grill last week. And,
Hmm.
we've all been vaccinated, and we were very excited about seeing each other and spending some time together. And every last person who's ever given me a hug in that context before came over and volunteered to do it. And I thought that was kind of cool. I'm
And I
known
bet
for,
it's amazing.
yeah. So in terms of, that awkwardness of do you, don't you, who is it? That's many times going to be in the space for me with somebody that I haven't hugged before,
Yeah, yeah.
and and rarely is it going to be a consideration for somebody that knows me well and knows that I am a serial hugger. I mean, that's just how I operate. With all of that said, what's something else that you noticed about coming out of hibernation and seeing people in life?
Well, for one, I think we're a year is a long time, and I don't think we're fully out of hibernation yet. So, whether it's because of what we were essentially conditioned um, to do, like I'll give you an example. So this is actually a very interesting one. So we, I recently had this. So I was recently with a new client today, a financial services firm, and one of the employees was having a lunch, and so they had bought. One of the employees there had a birthday today, so the owner of the company went ahead and bought everybody lunch. I was there for the meeting, so I got a lunch as well. So we all sat down, and then of course we're all sitting together. I had my mask on, Someone said we've been vaccinated. I have not, and so they were courteously wearing their masks around me. But of course, when you're going to go sit down, I followed them down, and we went down to the company kitchen, and there was all the meal placed out. And of course, I needed to take my mask off to be with them to eat, right? So, so there was kind of that, and then the rest of the day I was there. I just didn't use my mask, and I know I felt like, well, this wasn't exactly, I'm taking a risk. And the reason I thought that was because, there have been other people that they're not part of my bubble. Like, even if none of them had been vaccinated, they're all walking around without their mask day to day, from what I understand, or at least these last couple of weeks. I'm not sure how long it's been. But my point is that they were, they've been together, working in the same company, together in the same building, breathing the same air, and that's their bubble. So they're used to spending time with each other. So even if they weren't vaccinated, I'm thinking they're fine, they're protected. And then, and like, for example, we all had developed our own space bubbles. Our own families was our, not space bubble. Our own family was our, I guess you'd call it a safe bubble. That was our bubble,
Yeah.
So whomever we spent the most time with, our spouses, our families, our place of worship, our maybe our workplace is, when everything opened up again, we were able to go back into the office, et cetera, et cetera. So anytime that you weren't, with the people that you normally spend time with. So I think there's still kind of a risk. So anyway, my whole point in telling you the story was that I think I felt very freeing, very freed up. Like, okay, now I'm not wearing my mask. This is great. But then at the same time, I felt in the back of my mind, ooh, I'm really taking a risk here. I don't know if I should be doing this on a regular basis, or maybe I should just commit to making sure I visit this company more often, because now it's becoming part of my bubble. I don't know. But and then the same thing happened with my husband and I went to dinner with some friends on Friday night. And, right away, as soon as we walked in, they said, hey, you can take off your mask, feel free. And I was thinking, I mean, really, it doesn't make sense. If we were maybe eating outside the whole time, maybe it would have been fine. And then, put the mask back on when you come inside. But we were eating inside. It wasn't that warm yet. And so, yeah, all masks off. And I'm thinking, well, taking a risk, but, so, yeah. I think to answer your question, it's just the conditioning that that I don't know if I was talking about it earlier in this session or in the last session, but the conditioning that kind of happened to a lot of us that made us feel like we couldn't be safe around other human beings unless we had the necessary protection that was recommended.
Whatever it was that week, right?
And of course, now it's being considered the vaccination. So,
Yeah.
As the necessary protection. So, yeah.
And I mean, the whole notion of everyone at the table having to had been vaccinated is kind of hooey, because if you've got 5 couples and 4 of them have been vaccinated and the 5th one hasn't been vaccinated, but they've been careful about where they've been going and who they've been seeing, uh, it should be a relatively safe get together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you would think so, but the from what I had heard was that or the last thing I had heard was that uh, apparently you can still see. I don't know if this was just hearsay or if there is scientific fact to it. I'm not sure about that. But even if you've been vaccinated, apparently you can still transmit the virus to someone else.
That's
Even someone who's also been vaccinated, but then they can, and so the person who's got to watch out is the person who hasn't been vaccinated. So I don't know if that's what we're being told to encourage the vaccination, which I can understand that, or if that's scientific fact. That I'm not sure of, but
I believe it's scientific fact from what I've read. What they're basically saying is that if you have the Johnson and Johnson, the Moderna, or the Pfizer, none of those have anything to do with antibodies and antigens. Okay, they are all designed to be COVID killers. They have something in them that your body can use to dissolve the RNA sequences that keep COVID cohesive and a threat, so that it is removed from the body. But it's not an antibody. So you can actually catch the disease and be a carrier and transmit it to other people by shedding COVID virus. But the whole idea is that if you've been vaccinated, you're not. I mean, it's like 0% fatalities from people that have been vaccinated once they catch it. But yeah, you are at risk of catching it. So there's really a good reason for people to consider the broad information about social distancing and maintaining clean environments, especially the air. I mean, if the air can be treated, it ought to be. And people who haven't been vaccinated should not gather together in large groups and risk transmission. That's just pretty much it. So all of that.
Yeah,
said,
air purifiers throughout the building, but I don't know how effective those are.
What's that?
Oh, they did have a number of. I remember seeing a number of air purifiers in the building that I was at today, and I don't know how effective those are entirely when you're in a closed-in building all the time. But hey, who knows?
They do have varied effectiveness. There are a couple that I'm aware of that do a better job than most of the rest of them. The ones that you can buy, like at Best Buy or other retail outlets, they're made for rooms, and they will actually process the air that goes through them and use a UV light and probably a HEPA filter or something of that nature. And it takes them upwards of 12 to 20 hours for them to circulate all the air in the room, which means all the rest of that time, whatever is in there, and if somebody comes in shedding virus, it's still going to be an airborne, it's going to still be a possible thing that you can pathogen that you can catch, right? So the ones that I'm aware of will actually emit the modified carbon molecules, hydroxyls, superoxides, and peroxides. And essentially, those will kill what's in the air as well as going through a 5-stage filter. And they have those that can be installed in, so let's say if you have a drop ceiling with like an Armstrong, ceiling with tiles that are 2x2 sort of thing. You can put them one in a room, and they are 90% efficacious in 1 hour. It takes 24 hours to completely, process all the air in the room, but they are 90%. They will kill 90% of whatever is in that room within 1 hour to 2 hours. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, right. So
So
they are
all of
pretty
that
effective.
said, did you ever ice skate?
I tried it when I was younger. It wasn't for me.
Well, I'll tell you
No,
what.
I'm serious.
Well,
Yeah.
You were talking about all those thoughts that you had in the back of your mind, and a year's worth of programming about the do's and the don'ts and the safeties and the not safe and all that stuff. Well,
Yep.
in psychology, there is this. It's a great little story, but however thick the ice actually is, has absolutely no idea to how people experience it. It has no bearing or relationship to how people experience it. If you think you're on thin ice, even if it really in actuality is a foot thick, if you hear a crack, you think the whole thing's going to fall apart. And when you're in a new environment where it's one of those, really almost down to the operating system level in terms of our training in the last year, you shouldn't be here, shouldn't be doing this. Your mind's going to be on it, isn't it?
Yeah, naturally, I think. Yep.
And that's how people are wired, you know? So if you make a decision to do something in a group setting, I think it's still very prudent to be careful about how you do it. And it's also appropriate to ask people, what their story is. Have you been vaccinated? Have you been tested recently? Are you out with people that you don't know a fair amount of the time? And I got to tell you, within the last month, I have had 2 friends that came down with COVID. Thankfully, they went through their period of time and came through no problem at all. But it's still out there. It's still a real thing. And interestingly enough, I don't know what we're going to experience with regard to the variants and the change in season again coming this fall. I don't know. What are you hearing?
What did you say?
Are you hearing any stories about what to expect on that end?
I have not. No.
No, me either. But we we got onto this by you posing a question as to whether or not it's possible once you've been vaccinated to actually contract COVID, and the answer to that is 100%. You can get it. The good news is you should have a very slight case, and you're not going to die. That's empowering, given where we were 15 months ago.
Right. Yeah. It is. Yeah.
So beyond that, who haven't you seen yet in terms of maybe a category of person in your life? Are you back to church fully at this point?
Yeah, we actually we were fortunate because shortly after once the warmer weather hit, we have a large backyard, so we were able to gather behind the church but outside. So we were able to have outdoor gatherings for everyone. So that got us through the summertime, and it was actually very nice. It was very enjoyable. I know some churches were worshiping from the top of their rooftops, not the congregation, but the pastor or the music team or whatever would be on top of the rooftop. So, and other people were doing drive-in services. So they would have people drive in with their cars and tune to a certain AM radio station, and they could listen to the sermon. It's kind of interesting. People, the great thing about crisis is the resources that come about that we didn't even know were there, and the creativity that comes about in times of crisis. So that is one good thing that came out of the pandemic. I would say is just the opportunities. But anyway, yeah, so then, and it was actually our first time that we decided to go live stream. So we've pretty much been meeting in person almost the entire time, but it's only because we were able to do it. You know, we had a few more resources that enabled us to do it, where we could meet outside, and then we could meet inside. But then, of course, we had, you know, every other pew, and we had, you know, plenty of social distancing and masks and all of that. And then we did a live stream for people who absolutely did not want to come in person or couldn't come in person.
Yeah.
And so now, I think just last week or the week before, in our case, we just got back full capacity, and a lot of those masks are coming off, and um, and actually, so many people have said it's nothing, you know, live stream. There's nothing like it, and that's what we were talking about in the previous session. Even is that, you know, being, you know, having a meeting with your coworker or family, or, you know, a friend, even on a Zoom, you know, just having your faces in front of you where you can see the expressions and hear the intonations and everything. You're still not. It's just not the same as being in person. So.
No, and boy, I'll tell you what, it's talking about it is the same thing as trying uh, to have a non-in-person Zoom meeting. You know what I mean? You have to be there. You have to experience it. It's like a picture of the Grand Canyon or Alaska or Hawaii. It's not the same thing. And people are at least that impressive to me, you know? And it makes so much of a difference for me, you know, to the proximity, being able to hear uh, things that you can't hear when. And the other part of it is Zoom is really wait your turn. You know, now everybody gets to talk for 30 seconds and then wait your turn, and we don't behave that way in person, do we? In a group, we're interacting with each other, we're responding, we're emoting, we're making little comments, we're having fun. And the Zoom, you know, having your sound off and people actually doing something completely different and not paying attention, uh, it's a good thing. It's better than nothing, okay? Far better than nothing. And it has allowed a lot of people to continue to make a living throughout the last 15, 18 months. And now, with a little bit of luck and probably some hard work and paying attention, maybe, just maybe, we can keep things open and, you know, and keep doing the in-person thing.
Yeah, and return to some sort of semblance of normal again. I think that's what everybody's really looking for.
Yeah, it just reminds me of a time when, well, you go to an amusement park like Disney or Universal or SeaWorld or something like that, not so you can be reminded that it's safe there, but it never crosses your mind that it wouldn't be. Do you know what I'm saying? It's missing that it might not be safe. And that's where you have fun, where you actually are out there enjoying yourself and having a good time. So that if we have to in the background be thinking, you know, with one foot, we're going to take a little baby step over here and make sure that the ice doesn't crack underneath us. But as time goes on, I have a feeling it won't take us very long before people start to, you know, just really enjoy the in-person getting together and being around each other. And it's been kind of cool. Have you watched any sports on TV lately? The golf over the weekend, or maybe a baseball game or a basketball game?
I have not personally, but my husband has. Yes.
It's extraordinary to see thousands of people, you know, in the stands or in the gallery watching these professional events now. It makes a monstrous bit of difference. It's unbelievable the difference that it makes. The energy, as you said.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. It's that energy when you have a large number of people together at once.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So anyhow, we're getting very close to the top of our half hour. Any final parting thoughts to maybe summarize our two segments today, Vanessa?
No, I don't. But if you have, you're usually pretty good at that, summing up things. So feel free.
Thank you so much. So, in terms of what we've talked about today, I just want to invite people to go out into the world, be yourself, go and find out who other people are. Listen a lot more than you speak. And for God's sake, I mean, don't believe anything you hear and only half of what you see. And remember to take good care of yourself. There's nobody like you ever, and there'll never be anybody like you again. So with that said, this has been Bill Correll and Vanessa Lewis, and we've been lighting the candle to make a world that works. Right, Vanessa?
That's it. Thanks for joining us today.
Been a pleasure to be here with you folks, and have an amazing rest of the weekend. We'll speak soon and see you next week. Bye for now.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.